are basically sitting here waiting because they were coming out of the subway and were ushered out and told to head east, and basically been waiting in that area, waiting to move for this since this happened and since this started. As you mentioned earlier as well, we did see officers stopping cars here along Lexington Avenue, driving south on Lexington Avenue as they were going by, stopping each individual car using a flashlight, looking inside, apparently looking for something or someone. There's been no clarification on why that was happening, but as you can imagine with the situation that they're dealing with right now, that they were possibly looking for someone else involved in all of this. That has since ended. They've since stopped doing that again. They've shut down this area completely. No more traffic here. Before it was jam-packed bumper to bumper as cars literally sat here like a parking lot waiting to go because of all the closures that have happened here in Midtown East as a result of all of this. But right now, again, the area completely frozen. We're being told to move back every couple minutes or so. We were, again, closer to the scene over here. You can see the flashing lights in the distance. That's going to be Park and 53rd Street. And again, if you go one block south, we're going to be at 52nd and Park. That is where that building is, 345 Park Avenue. Earlier, we saw people being evacuated from the area here on the other side on 53rd and Lex. And they were running out of the building at the corner of, the corner of 52nd and Lex, and they were running out of the building. So I don't know if they were basically let out of the building at 345 Park, and then were brought down to the sidewalk here at Lexington, and then were basically able to get outside of the area. So people were running from, a number of people running in single file, running behind each other away from the scene. It looked like they had been within that zone, and police were ushering them to safety. We've seen a number of police officers, tactical police officers in tactical gear with long guns entering the area here. But as of right now, like I said, everything is basically frozen at this point as the investigation continues. People just right now at a standstill. No motion, no movement here on Lexington Avenue between at least 54th Street and what we can see 50th Street south of us.
And Checky, I want to ask you, because Jonathan Deans is telling us that his sources are saying that potentially this shooter has died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but it seems from your vantage point that this is still a very active and serious situation, at least from the posturing of police officers on the scene. This is not over yet. Would you say that's correct?
That's right, Rana. So whether that is in fact the case, that the shooter is no longer with us, is deceased, police are taking this as though there is still a threat, at least from all of the shutdowns that we're seeing, all of the measures that they're taking of ushering people out of the area, keeping not only the press back, but public back quite a distance. We've seen more tactical vehicles and units continuing to go in, despite this word that the shooter has been, has possibly taken his own life, but there's still ushering people out of the area, still have the area on lockdown right now. Actually, if you take a look over here across the street, we'll have Oscar pan around here, you can see people being ushered east here on 53rd Street toward Lexington Avenue, coming from Park Avenue. So it looked like those people were kind of stuck in that area that was on lockdown, a block west of us, and now they're being let out finally. So there's definitely a direct path that they're being sent on. It's the area, though, is still locked down. So no word on if those people were in that building or if they were in a surrounding building that had been on lockdown, because a number of buildings in this area are on lockdown. People are just staying in their offices as they await word that it's safe to come out. But as you mentioned, police still very much treating this like it is an active situation.
I'm sure a huge relief for those workers who are able to finally leave and get to safety. Checky, thank you so much. We want to check in again with News 4's Ida Siegel, who is also on the scene there. Ida, we saw earlier you were showing us people in an office building next door who were looking out, seeing what was going on. I'm wondering if those people are still there. Can you see if they've been able to leave?
Well, interestingly, Rana, the last time I checked that office building, I saw a custodian pushing what appeared to be a garbage can moving through, and significantly fewer people looking out the windows. So it looks like those people who were looking out, if they were told they couldn't leave, have been told they can leave, or perhaps they lost interest, but regardless, they're no longer staring out the window. So that's an indication that things might be starting to wind down. And I'll tell you, I was listening to Jonathan and his reporting about the possibility that the shooter is no longer with us, was taken out by a self-inflicted gunshot wound on an upper floor. You know, we're sort of seeing a more relaxed atmosphere down here on the ground as well. Once again, we're on 53rd Street, and Rana, you spotted that NYPD canine. Well, afterward, I would say about 5-10 minutes later, I spotted what appeared to be a detective taking the canine back inside the police car. You'd imagine it's really hot. You want to make sure that the canine is okay and has enough to drink. But regardless, it seems like they don't need the assistance of that canine at this moment. We see a lot of people from the NYPD that are walking around, not running, but walking, which is also markedly different than the tone we were seeing maybe 45 minutes ago. It appears that perhaps they are at the investigative leg of this situation. But again, as Jonathan reported, we don't know if there was only a single active shooter or if perhaps there was another threat, somebody else who might be armed. And that's really, I would imagine, the primary job of law enforcement at this point, is to see if there continues to be a threat here. Again, public safety is their priority. They're looking to make sure that the person who is threatening public safety is no longer out and about and causing dangerous situations with that weapon. And so they have to freeze the entire area and make sure that this person was acting alone and make sure that, in fact, people are safe here. But, you know, you can see here on 53rd Street, they did just put up another piece of yellow crime tape. However, beyond that, there are stretchers that are empty. There are ambulances with flashing lights that are not moving. We have not seen any ambulances leave the scene, which actually is a good sign. You would think they'd have to transport more victims to the hospital if there were any more victims. But clearly, as Jonathan was reporting, we have one civilian who was shot, one police officer who was shot, who, as Jonathan said, is in surgery at this moment. And then we have the gunman himself, who apparently is shot himself. I don't know if we are reporting what his status is at this point, if he has lost his life, but again, a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So there's a lot of work to do on the scene here. Even if it looks like things might be winding down a little bit, there's still a lot for the NYPD to take care of and to do on scene. So that's what we're seeing here at 53rd and Park. Still definitely a frozen zone. People are at the ready, but it does feel like the atmosphere here might be a little bit more relaxed as we're learning that the gunman has shot himself. Rana.
Yeah, from a very serious situation, Ida, it appears, as you're describing, some signs of progress, hopefully some safety for the people who are working in those buildings, in particular working in that building, 345 Park Avenue. We want to check back in with our Jonathan Dienst, who has been talking to his sources about the investigative leg of this. Still preliminary, Jonathan, as all of this is still obviously developing.
Right, but I want to go back to that photo of the man with the assault rifle walking into the building. We now have from a senior official that that is the suspected shooter who went into the building, began firing, shot a uniformed, paid detail police officer, critically wounding that officer, and then proceeding to shoot at least one, if not a couple of civilians inside that office tower. That senior official tells us that man there in the suit carrying the assault rifle later on the 33rd floor turned the gun on himself and took his own life. We do not have a motive for this shooting. New York's Governor Kathy Hochul on X a short time ago: I've been briefed on an active shooter situation in Midtown Manhattan. Please avoid the area at this time. The FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino on X saying the FBI New York field office has personnel and agents responding to provide support at this crime scene. So again, a senior official tells us this is the suspected shooter walking into the building around 6:30, 6:40 this evening, opening fire, shooting and injuring a police officer. That police officer, we are told, is critical condition, very critical condition, and that he continued to go on and shoot at least one other civilian, but we are waiting for additional details if there's a second or third civilians injured and the natures of those injuries. Again, did they come from the gunshots? Did they come from the stampede? All of that is being sorted out. But again, the investigation very much ongoing. The very preliminary information is this appears to be a lone actor situation. Motive appears to be unknown. As a precaution, the entire Midtown area near that building at Park Avenue and 52nd Street is shut down as the investigation is ongoing. As Ida Siegel and Checky Beckford have reported, police were seen searching cars parked nearby as a precaution to make sure nothing may have been left behind by this attacker. And again, the investigation very much ongoing inside that building. The corporate offices of numerous high-powered firms. You have Blackstone, KPMG, Bristol Myers, the NFL, all have offices in that building according to public records. And the police officer who is critically wounded, we are told was hired on their free time to dress in uniform and provide extra security at that building, at that scene, given the threat environment we now all live in. So again, one officer and at least one civilian shot, that officer in critical condition, and the lone gunman appears to have taken his own life on the 33rd floor. The investigation on searching every floor of that building to look for any possible other victims, people in hiding, to reassure them and escort them to safety, and to make sure the suspect did not have any help or did not leave anything like a device somewhere left behind on one of the floors. All of that precautionary, but needs to be done when you have a man armed with an assault rifle walking into a corporate office on Park Avenue and 52nd Street just at the height of rush hour around 6:30, 6:40 p.m. and begins opening fire in the lobby of that corporate building. And somehow he makes it up to the 33rd floor, where numerous sources now tell us, and including one senior official, that the man seen in that photo carrying that gun turned the gun on himself and took his own life, and he is now dead on the 33rd floor. And we're awaiting an official victim count from the police department. The best we have right now officially is one officer in critical condition and a civilian injured as well. And we await to hear if a second and third victims that we are starting to hear about, if that's the result of gunfire or of a stampede, and the nature of their injuries. Hopefully they are not serious. Right.
And Jonathan, just looking at that photo of that suspect, just chilling, carrying what appears to be an assault rifle, but dressed in what appears to be at least partially business clothing. But to reiterate here, we don't know a motive. We don't know whether this man potentially worked in that building or in that area, correct?
We don't know anything about him just yet. We have not been told his identity. There's work ongoing. This incident still less than or about an hour old, and police and the FBI, ATF, others sorting through who this suspect is, the motive for this attack, and who the victims are, and obviously just securing and making sure everything is safe. But a shocking shooting incident along Park Avenue around 6:40, 6:45 this evening.
Yeah, and just from a Google search here, it appears the building is 44 stories high, Jonathan. So as you're saying, they're going to go through floor by floor, check for any other potential victims, check to see if this was in fact a lone actor situation, and to check if he potentially left anything behind. I imagine this would take some time.
And we just have an update from Police Commissioner Tisch, and she has posted, at this time, the scene has been contained and the lone shooter has been neutralized. Again, our best information is the shooter took his own life on the 33rd floor. That could be subject to change if somehow police confronted him and wound up shooting him. But our initial information was that he took his own life on the 33rd floor. There is no longer a threat, according to the police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, after a lone gunman entered that Park Avenue building and began shooting. Again, a police officer in critical condition. The civilian, we are waiting for an update. We are told that person worked in an accounting department for one of the firms in that building. And again, that a major corporate office for major firms here in this city.
And that officer was already in the building, correct? Working, as you said, security detail. He was not responding to the initial incident, correct?
Right. What the NYPD allows is that officers in their free time and their off-duty time can earn extra money, and corporations can hire through the police department these police officers to stand in uniform to provide a visible security presence. And we are told that is what was happening with this officer, who we are told normally works out of a precinct in the Bronx, and that officer was shot, we are told, perhaps in the back. It is unclear if that officer was able to return fire, but we do know that the suspect then continued his way into the building, shot at least one other civilian, and made his way up to the 33rd floor. It raises questions. Did he ever work in that building? Did he have a pass to get through security banks? Did he hop over them, take an elevator up? All of these are questions. And again, what was the motive? Is this workplace violence? Is this a random act of violence? It is unclear. And we are waiting to hear from the police and the FBI and the mayor in terms of what has taken place and the enormous and rapid response to this lone gunman dressed in a suit, carrying an assault rifle, walking into 345 Park Avenue around 6:30, 6:45 this evening, and opening fire. He is now dead, that according to the police commissioner of the city of New York, and there is one officer, again, critically wounded, and one civilian wounded. There is a car that they are looking at to see if that vehicle is connected to the suspect. Did he drive here? That is something being looked at. We do not know that. We are waiting to hear, but that also could explain why some of the vehicles, our reporters out in the field saw police going car to car looking, and perhaps, you know, there is some either evidence or materials that point police to a vehicle nearby and to whether that belongs to the suspected shooter. We do not yet know how he arrived at Park Avenue and how he got into that building. All we have right now is that surveillance image that shows him apparently walking in with the gun, and a senior official saying he is the one who began shooting and then took his own life up on the 33rd floor.
And Jonathan, let me ask you about the conditions of those who are shot. You're saying the officer is critical in surgery right now. Do we know anything about the civilian, or the at least one civilian who was shot?
All right, I do not have an update on that civilian condition. I do know that there is grave concern for the officer.
Okay, Jonathan, not what we want to hear. But thank you so much for your reporting. Again, the police commissioner saying that at this time, the scene has been, in her words, contained and the lone shooter has been neutralized. We want to check back in with News 4's Checky Beckford, who is at the scene right now. Checky, what are you seeing from your vantage point now?
Yeah, Rana, that's some information that kind of lends to that. I'm going to turn you over here, turn Oscar, photojournalist Oscar, over here so you can see some of the people walking by. They just came down the street. We've been seeing dozens of people being allowed by police to come down 53rd Street from Park to Lexington here, Lexington and 53rd, where we're standing. And it looks like from at least one person that we heard from, just basically shouting to them across the street that they were in a building next to that building, 345 Park, and were basically sheltering in place and are now being allowed to leave. So that would make sense if the shooter has been neutralized and there is no longer a threat of anyone else being hurt, that they're letting people out of the area. Again, like we've said, dozens of people. You can see this one person now, but earlier there were many more people coming down from Park Avenue on 53rd Street here and being allowed to head north on Lexington and then kind of out of the zone. The street, the entire area is still shut down here on Lexington Avenue from 54th Street further down to about 54th Street to 51st Street. And about 54th Street is where they're being allowed to then leave and to basically find their own way home. But again, this point, this area of Midtown East is very much shut down. The other avenues, as we can imagine, are equally backed up because of there not being any traffic being allowed through here. But also one thing to note as well, the subway here has also been on lockdown this entire time as well. The entrance to the subway, nobody's been allowed to exit until this point. We're now seeing some people being able to come out of the subway, but they're being directed west here. They're not being able to come out into the area here, and they're not being allowed to go east. So they're being directed toward 3rd Avenue as they come out of the subway, but people are not being allowed in or out at this point. Again, we're still seeing police showing up. There's another officer here getting the stuff out of the back of his car. We've seen an ambulance come into the area, some more ESU specialized tactical vehicles also coming into the area. But it does seem, as Jonathan was mentioning, that the situation has become a bit more relaxed to a certain extent because of them allowing more people to leave the central area near the building, 345 Park Avenue, to then come out and hopefully be able to go home at this point. But still, no traffic here in this area whatsoever.
It's still ongoing, Checky. We're seeing reports that the mayor is there on scene. I'm not sure if you've seen him. Of course, it's a large scene. I imagine some of the NYPD's top brass will be there on scene, hopefully to give an update on what is happening. Any indication of that happening?
Yeah, no indication so far. We've spoken to some of the DCI folks here, but they've basically just been pushing us back, as we mentioned, further and further away from the scene. So at this point, it's unclear exactly where or when that would actually happen. Right now, though, I'm coming over here because we're seeing some state troopers coming out of the area as well. Excuse me, there we go. Some troopers coming out of the area, and then some more people that are being let out of the scene as well. Again, just kind of a steady stream of people who were from at least one person kind of shouted to us across the street as they were being let out, saying that they were being sheltered in place in one of the buildings next to that 345 Park Avenue building. And I'm assuming, because we saw people even on this block here on Lexington Avenue, we could see in some of these windows here that they were inside their office using their cell phones to look out, as though they were not able to leave at that point, as though they were also being sheltered in place. So this a very large scene area here that they basically shut down as a result of this shooting to make sure that people were safe.
Okay, Checky, thank you so much for your reporting there. We want to check in now with News 4's Chris Glorioso, who I believe is also on scene. Chris, tell us where you are and what you're seeing.
Well, Rana, we're a number of blocks away at New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell Medical Center. This is the location that we are
on the surface. Only really trained eyes could maybe see it. If you got taken out in this direction, you're going to kind of want to swim a little parallel, either left or right to the shoreline.
So the idea is that even if you do panic, if you could take that moment to maybe take a breath and roll on your back, you know, kind of float for the most part. Let the current do what it's going to do. Wave your hand so somebody can see you.
Kids also learned about their job, the gear, and what it takes to be on the NYPD scuba team.
The suit, the mask, the fins, and the weight.
Midtown Park Avenue area where you saw the frantic scene. We continually hear a lot of police activity, a lot of sirens pulling up to the hospital. Obviously, a number of police personnel very concerned about their colleague who was seriously injured by what we understand to be gunfire on one of the higher floors of that skyscraper. And again, as you can see, police officers showing up here with some urgency. Again, I want to repeat, we are told that the officer who was injured was a female officer in uniform on a paid detail from the 47th precinct working inside that building. We're told that she is in very critical condition here at New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell Medical Center. Again, just a very emotional scene out here. You can see just on the looks of some of the law enforcement officers' faces, they are concerned about her condition, of course, and we will continue to monitor the activity here. But that is the latest here from 68th and York in front of the hospital where this injured police officer was taken. Back to you.
And Chris, let me ask you kind of a pivot from the officer's condition there. You're about 20 blocks or so, maybe less, away from the scene itself. Do you see any traffic backups, any issues where you are in relation to this incident?
I mean, I think it's fair to say that on the east side of Manhattan, really probably from certainly the high 50s to the 30s, there is a severe traffic impact. My expectation is that it is starting to dissipate a little bit as we went east, as you would imagine, and as we went north, as you would imagine, we saw fewer and fewer of those traffic impacts. But certainly in this cluster of blocks, I think now that some of the personnel who were over there at the active shooter scene perhaps have been released. Some of them are headed here because they frankly want to be by the side of their colleague who is, from what we understand, fighting for her life in the hospital right now.
All of our thoughts are with her right now. Chris, thank you so much for the latest there. We want to check back in with News 4's Jonathan Dienst, who's been talking to his sources. Jonathan, we're learning from Chris here that this was a female officer and, as you have been reporting, in very critical condition there.
I will confirm the critical condition part. I am going to avoid the sex of the officer at this time because I've heard it different ways. So I can only say that it's a police officer assigned to the Bronx and in very grave condition. A couple things are coming in which we're not going to show just yet because we're going to get additional confirmation on it. But we have a photo that appears to show the gunman after he shot himself on the 33rd floor. We're working on confirmation and also making sure what of that photo we can share. But again, the police commissioner of the city of New York saying the lone gunman who entered that building that houses the offices of the NFL, KPMG, and several other major firms, that gunman is now dead and is a lone actor. We have additional photos coming in which we're working on to confirm that show numerous offices where workers were barricading the doors with furniture. And so literally these images are of couches and chairs and cabinets blocking the entrances to these offices as they heard the shots being rung out, and workers in that building knowing there was a gunman on the loose. And as you know, they've been training workers since 9/11, hide, flee, hide, fight. Those are the various levels that they go, and these images clearly show that workers are hiding in numerous offices that we're getting photos of that show literally furniture lined up to protect themselves from this man who police are saying, one senior official saying that he is the man walking in with an assault rifle who opened fire on the police officer who was on paid detail to help with security in that building, and then shooting at least one employee inside, perhaps two others injured. Again, whether those two others are injured from the stampede, the concern, or whether it was from any gunfire, we are awaiting word from law enforcement to get clarity on the victim count in that building. Again, we are told the police commissioner, the mayor on scene, and we expect a briefing, and we are getting additional information about the suspect, but we will wait to get additional confirmation before we begin sharing additional information about him. But again, these images when we're able to triple check and make sure they're right, they certainly have all the appearance of it, of the concern and the terror that people were experiencing inside that building, literally piling up the furniture at the entrances to try to save themselves from a man armed with an assault rifle walking into a Park Avenue corporate building and opening fire. Again, that police officer in very, very grave condition, assigned to help protect the civilians who were working inside that corporate office at 52nd and Park.
And Jonathan, we always appreciate that you go through the checks and balances to make sure that what we're reporting here is the best, most accurate information available to us at the moment. As you're learning more about this suspect, is there anything new you can share with us about a potential motive, about who he is?
I can't at this point in time. We really do not know any motive. We are beginning, we have a preliminary ID. We're going to work on this now to learn more about him and why he may have approached this building on this day at this time, and whether there was anyone he was targeting or whether he was, if this is just some sort of random attack. We are working on that and reaching out to our sources, and we're going to be very careful and get multiple confirmations before I go any further with that information.
So we know the mayor is on scene, the police commissioner, I imagine other top brass of the NYPD. We're expecting to hear from them at some point. I imagine their first priority is to check on this officer. Anything more you can share about their condition? Well,
the officer was taken to a hospital, we were told, in surgery, in very grave condition. That officer was assigned to a Bronx precinct normally, in free time, working a paid security detail at this corporate office for the visible sign of security, and there is grave concern for this officer. There is one civilian, at least one civilian, again injured from gunfire. We are still awaiting an identity and a condition. We are told that person did work in an accounting type role with one of the firms in that building. The latest that we're working on providing you is this image of the gunman deceased in the hallway, and also the images of the furniture barricaded up, and also more about the suspect, which we hope to be able to share with you soon as we get additional confirmation.
And going back to that office building, 345 Park Avenue, about 44 floors here. This is a high-rise in Midtown Manhattan. We don't know how many workers were in the building at that time at 6:40 or so. What can you tell us about the people who are inside that building? Do you know if they've been able to leave the building at this point? Are they still sheltering in place while police go floor to floor and make sure that everything is okay?
I wish I had more information about that search and rescue or operation. Again, the police commissioner has announced that it is a lone actor and that the situation is now safe. So you would think that people, if any of them were still barricaded, that they are being escorted out by police officials, fire officials, other security, and officials who are on scene. The FBI is also on scene. Attorney General Pam Bondi has sent out on X a message saying that the U.S. Attorney has now set up a command post in conjunction with the FBI to assist the NYPD in its investigation of this suspect, why he targeted this building, and how he came about targeting this building this evening. So again, this is a investigation right now led by the NYPD with the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office very much assisting, given that we are now an hour and a half or so into this shooting incident in Midtown at 52nd and Park.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you so much for the latest. We want to check back in at the scene with News 4's Checky Beckford. Checky, we know you were seeing some workers at nearby office buildings being let out. Are you seeing more of that now?
Yeah, as we're speaking, Rana, more and more are coming out, trying to get some of them to stop and speak to us. We spoke to a young man just a little bit ago who came out from the scene here, and he said that he was having lunch, a late lunch at a restaurant next door to 345 Park when he heard the gunshots. He said he heard several gunshots. He thought it was a car backfiring and that the security of that building immediately locked the doors. He realized what it was, locked the doors, and he saw about 40 to 50 police officers running into the building at the time. He said, of course, he was visiting from Orlando with his mother and was obviously very surprised, anxious about what was happening on this trip, this tourist trip of theirs, literally right next door to them. So yeah, as you mentioned, right now we had to move a block north to 54th and Lex, where these people, who were in the buildings earlier, are being let out. This is where they're coming down 53rd Street. They're being sent north here on Lexington, and this is where they're able to exit and go to wherever they need to get to try to get home. So we're seeing more and more of them coming out. As Jonathan mentioned a while back, that when there was word that the shooter had been neutralized, it seemed that was when the situation started to pick up. We started to see more and more people being let out of the area that was essentially on lockdown, heavily guarded by police and ES youth units and so forth. But right now, some of those people, as we mentioned, we've seen dozens and dozens so far. So I can imagine that it's quite a number that are being let out of the buildings. And it wasn't just the buildings right adjacent to the 345 Park address. We're talking about buildings, this building right here on Lexington. We saw people finally being let out of this building as well. Now that the situation has been deemed safe.
Are you seeing, Checky, any roads reopening in the area? This was a large area that's been blocked off for some time now. Anything that you can see from where you are?
Yeah, I think so. I just mentioned we're at 54th and Lex, and we are now seeing traffic being allowed to head east here on 54th Street. Before, when it seemed like it was shut down completely, so there's that situation, but still not being allowed to head south on Lexington or in that area by 53rd Street at this point. Also, even 54th, where we are to the west here, is still shut down. But cars are being allowed to head east on make a left turn off Lexington onto 54th Street to get out of the area, but still a number of roads, blocks shut down in the Midtown East area. So if you're planning to come into this area, it's still not a situation you want to be a part of.
Yeah, Checky, I want to ask you a little bit more about your interactions with some of these workers who are being let out. Of course, some of them must be terrified, or some of them must have questions about what was going on. Can you tell us any more about what they were saying? Did they seem like they were scared? Were they curious about what was happening? What more can you tell us?
The one person that we spoke to, the main person we spoke to, the young man obviously was scared, and he'd been in that restaurant, was basically kept in that restaurant for a number of hours while this was happening, and didn't know what was happening, obviously, but he had heard that gunshot and had been told that there were gunshots by a security guard in the building, and of course then became terrified. We talked to another man who was in an office building, not on the same block, who seemed to be taking it pretty much in stride. He said he basically just stayed in his office. He didn't really look too much. He looked at the news sites quite a bit, but not too much. He didn't want to get himself worked up about the whole thing, and waited until they told him it was safe to leave.
Okay, still developing out there tonight. Checky, thank you so much. We want to recap what we know at this time. Again, this is a shooting that happened inside of an office building, the address 345 Park Avenue, just after 6:30 this evening. A senior official that's familiar with this matter told us that a man armed with a rifle walked into that building. We're told that he shot a police officer who was there in the building working security detail, and at least one civilian. That officer, we are told, is in critical condition, in grave condition, as Jonathan described. Police saying that they found that suspected shooter with a self-inflicted gunshot wound on the 33rd floor. Police telling us it appears to be a lone actor situation. They don't appear to be looking for anyone else in this. We've learned that Mayor Eric Adams is on the scene there. We don't yet know a motive for the shooting. We don't know if this person worked in the building or worked in the area. You can follow along with the latest on our website, NBCNewYork.com, and wherever you stream News 4. My colleague Natalie Pascarella joining us now as we continue to follow this active shooter situation, which appears to be coming to a close here in Midtown Manhattan.
We are glad to hear it is under control, but just some stunning images, Rana, when you think of what folks in that building were thinking and the suspected gunman seeing that photo that we've been showing of him walking with an assault rifle by his side. You can't imagine what people in those office buildings are thinking.
Yeah, just openly appearing to be openly walking with this assault rifle. Jonathan Deans has been showing us this photo. We want to check back in with Jonathan, who has been talking to his sources who are close to this investigation. Jonathan, give us an update on what we know at this point.
What we know is that one police officer is in grave condition from the Bronx. A second civilian is shot and wounded, and that there are a couple of other injuries. At this hour, it is unclear if those are related to the gunshot, and that the shooter himself is now deceased on the 33rd floor from what appears to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The police commissioner confirming the threat is now over, that this was the work of a lone actor. We have some information that suggests the suspect has a residence in Las Vegas, Nevada. We are not going to name him or show you the photo yet of his ID, as we're still working to get multiple confirmations from law enforcement. But this man has an address from Las Vegas, and there is that surveillance camera footage that showed him walking into the entrance of that Park Avenue building around 6:30, 6:45 this evening, carrying an assault rifle and then opening fire. He shot the uniformed police officer who was working there, sort of extra duty, getting paid to be a visible presence in their off-duty hours. And that officer is in critical condition. The suspect then continued shooting and managed to work his way up to the 33rd floor, and then apparently took his own life with that assault rifle. There are images from inside the building that show people barricading furniture to try to keep themselves safe, with the sound of gunfire reverberating throughout the building. And we are awaiting word from officials, and the mayor is posting a statement to X right now with his statement, which we'll be able to bring to you in a few moments, that he is on scene dealing with this crisis. The NYPD is leading the investigation. The FBI is on scene to assist. The motive for this attack is unclear. Again, at least 2 people shot. That officer, extremely grave condition as they were rushed to an area hospital. And you can see quite a response. And that entire Midtown area at 52nd and Park was shut down and continues to be shut down with this major investigation ongoing. That building at Park Avenue and 52nd Street, again, houses the MG and some other major offices inside that building. And that a gunman with an assault rifle in Park Avenue in daylight during the evening rush would walk in and begin shooting. Obviously, this is a shocking incident. It appears the suspect may be from Las Vegas. We're working to get additional confirmation of the name and photos that we have. Rana.
And John, I know this is Natalie. I know you're working to get more information specifically on that suspect. Just to clarify, so you're saying he walked in, you believe he shot the officer right when he walked in? Was it right outside the doors? Do we know exactly where that officer was who was on paid duty? The
best information I have is that they were in the lobby.
In the lobby.
But again, can I say it is in fact the ground floor lobby versus the 33rd floor lobby? I don't know. My belief is it's the lobby of the building, and then he worked his way up to the 33rd floor. Obviously, we will await a word from officials for more of the details from what went on inside that building. But again, they had to go floor to floor, try to make sure everyone was safe, determine this was a lone actor, and then get all the people who were barricaded inside out safely. And again, the police commissioner posting on X that this appears to be the work of a lone actor.
And this officer, as you're saying, was paid security detail, in a way working extra, right? Aside from their regularly assigned duties, they work extra to make money providing security for places.
That's right. We see that in many buildings across the city that is allowed, where it's in cooperation with the police department, that officers can be hired in their free time to work in uniform to provide that extra visible presence in major buildings that pay for this service, and the officer earns some extra money as a result of that service. And the suspect, again, taking his own life up on the 33rd floor, that officer, as I've said repeatedly, grave concern as they were rushed into surgery, assigned to the Bronx, and we await official word on the condition of that officer. And again, at least one civilian injured. We heard as many as 2 others, but those 2 others, we don't know if they were from gunshots or from the stampede and the concern, given the panic that must have been going on inside that building as a man with an assault rifle walked in and began firing.
You talk about that panic, Jonathan. Checky Beckford had just sent an email saying she just talked with somebody who was coming down the escalator when they heard shots. Said another person told them 2 people were shot in the lobby. This is all hearing from people there on the scene. But you can only imagine what these people in that office building were going through earlier this evening when this all went down. Still developing, of course.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying. At this point, we're still waiting to hear whether the people in that office building were all allowed to leave at this point. We're not sure if any of them are still sheltered in place. We know the police are saying that the shooter has been neutralized, as they're saying, died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but we don't know yet if they're done searching the building and if the people inside have been allowed to leave.
And in this day and age with cell phones and everything, I'm sure we're going to be getting video coming in. As Jonathan Dean said, people were piling up furniture, barricading themselves inside when you hear gunshots like that. And we don't know exactly how many floors he was on. Did he go straight up to the 33rd floor? What exactly went down, or exactly how many people were injured in this shooting? But we do know, again, at this hour, what is confirmed is that police officer on paid detail in critical, as Jonathan says, grave condition at this hour.
Yeah, and we don't know how the shooter was able to access these floors. So many of these office buildings have security measures in place where you can't even access the elevator unless you have
a code,
a badge or a code. So we're not sure yet how they were able to perhaps force their way onto to an elevator to get to the 33rd floor of this building, or perhaps they had access a different way. But officers responding to the scene found the gunman dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound on the 33rd floor of this building that houses some pretty major businesses here in Midtown. 44 floors of various businesses that share this office building, 345 Park Avenue.
I mean, Miranda, similar to the building we work in here at 30 Rock, anybody who's visited Midtown, who works in Midtown, who has lunch in Midtown, you know just how busy it is right at rush hour when everybody's coming through that way, to see something like this happen. And just truly haunting to see that picture of that, if we have that picture to throw up, of the suspected gunman with an assault rifle by his side. There it is, right there. Like you said earlier, Rand, I was listening to your coverage. You're talking about how he looks to be in normal, everyday workwear with an assault rifle by his side.
Right.
So it does track with what Jonathan Dean said. If you're coming right in the building, if there was just one officer and they were right there in the front, depending on, maybe was how he was able to get in and get up so quickly.
They would have been the first person to confront that shooter. And again, this officer is in critical condition. Jonathan is describing it as grave condition. We saw our Chris Glorioso at the hospital about 20 minutes ago or so, showing us the response at the hospital. Officers there wondering how their fellow officer is doing, showing up to the hospital, trying to get an update on their condition. We want to get back to News 4's Jonathan Dienst with an update on the investigation. Jonathan, what can you tell us?
Okay, we will now report that the officer has died. We had been asked to wait until the family was notified. The family has now been notified. We're told they have arrived at the hospital, and the police officer was shot and is now dead in this shooting. We are now told from law enforcement officials that there are 4 other victims who have been shot. The degree of no one is deceased. We are waiting to hear the level of seriousness of those injuries. That from one senior official. We had heard as many as 2 or 3 others. So preliminary, we will go as they continue to sort this out, and these numbers may change. They may go up, they may go down. But that originally we had 1 civilian shot and 2 others injured. We are now hearing as many as 3 others injured, and all were from gunshot-related injuries. We will wait official word from the police and the FBI, who are investigating and dealing with this. We are also told they are looking to the suspect, and we've had that photo and we've shown it to you several times. There he is. That's been circulated among law enforcement. That is the man who multiple officials say entered the building carrying that rifle and began firing, shooting and killing the police officer and injuring 1 civilian, perhaps as many as 3 others with gunfire before going up to the 33rd floor and taking his own life. We have a photo of him up there on the 33rd floor. We're just working for additional confirmation of that end result of that shooting. We also have photos that, again, we are working on that appear to show in several of the offices the workers barricading themselves behind closed doors amid the gunfire, amid the concern, amid the panic. And we are working to get just additional confirm of which firms these are, exactly what floors they are before we begin sharing those photos. But obviously a very troubling shooting incident in Park Avenue in Midtown at the tail end of the evening rush hour, 6:30, 6:45 on a Monday evening. A man in a suit with an assault rifle walks into a lobby, shoots a police officer in uniform, shoots at least one other civilian, works his way up to the 33rd floor, perhaps additional shots fired up there before he turns and takes his own life. This building, offices of the NFL, KPMG, Blackstone, other major firms in this Park Avenue building. This is prime New York City real estate. This is the heart of Midtown. Park Avenue shut down, a major crime scene at this hour. Police, FBI, ATF, FDNY, ambulances on standby as a precaution, as workers obviously now being taken out, escorted to safety because, as the police commissioner noted on Twitter, the situation is now under control, as it is the act of a lone gunman. We have information coming in, preliminary, but coming in that this suspect may have a Las Vegas address. It is being run down by law enforcement at this hour. We have a name and a photo that goes with it. We're not going to share it until we have official confirmation, and then we could perhaps learn more about this suspect's motive as to why he went into this building in Midtown and began shooting and shooting apparently victims at random.
So, John, just to clarify, you did confirm that sadly, the officer was shot and killed, and you said you believed 3 or 4 other victims shot and injured.
We were told originally it's 1 other civilian shot and 2 others injured, unclear. Okay. We just heard from a senior official that there are 4 other civilians all shot, but that is single source. It is a top official. So I feel comfortable sharing that number. Okay. But again, I just caution these numbers, as we've heard throughout the couple hours we've been on the air now. These numbers can and do change. We are in the first stages of reporting this out. So just everything is preliminary, grain of salt. It's the best information we have at this hour.
Jonathan, we appreciate your reporting and that sad update, unfortunately, that the officer who was shot in this has died. We know the mayor is on scene. We expect the police commissioner to be there as well, and we expect to hear from them at some point tonight with a news briefing.
Jonathan saying that the mayor was going to speak at some point. He did post on X that he was on scene, that other people were injured, and that he was on his way to the hospital as well. So still so many moving parts. But again, we did just find out that police officer who was shot has died. Sadly, that is the newest development, and that other people were injured. We're going to have so much more for you coming up throughout the evening on NBCNewYork.com, wherever you stream. Also, we'll see you on News 4 New York at 11. Stay safe.
because now that it's after 6 p.m., this beach and all city beaches are closed at that time when lifeguards are off their posts and done with their